In the 1990s, Chicago's Southside could be described as a gray zone. It was avoided by the police and ruled by gangs. The area was dominated by the drug economy and had become a forgotten corner, where law and order had nearly collapsed. Someone said that for a white person in Chicago, the South Side is a void, populated only by stereotypes. Travel guides to Chicago claim that even most locals will advise tourists and anyone unfamiliar with the city to avoid going anywhere south of downtown. A 1990 report published by the Chicago Tribune stated that dramatic increases in 1990 murders were recorded in the Wentworth, Grand Crossing, South Chicago, Pullman, Gresham, and Englewood police districts, all on the South Side. There, assault, shooting, and drug problems emerged endlessly, and was also home to a serial killer known as the Southside Strangler. In 1999, Jack Levin, a renowned criminologist specializing in violent crime, serial killers, and mass murders, said that if white middle-class college students are targeted, then it becomes a national case. If it is black prostitutes, you're talking about marginalized people. It doesn't even get the attention locally. So, when the first black woman went missing, no alarm was raised, and the same happened when the second and third went missing. They were drug addicts and prostitutes with few family members who cared about them, and they were also marginal groups deemed unworthy of the police's time. These missing women endured atrocities that no ordinary person could bear. They were beaten to death with wooden planks, strangled with bare hands, and sexually assaulted after their deaths, while their corpses were still warm. It was only when his final victim, Claudia Robinson, fortunately escaped his attack that the Southside Strangler, a vagrant, drug addict, and necrophiliac, was finally exposed. In an interview, Robinson told the camera, "I'm a disabled person today. I can't use my right hand and there's a rod in my leg. But I'm very lucky. I'm still alive. I'm the only one who survived." More than 20 years ago, she was sexually assaulted, beaten, and left for dead in an abandoned building in Englewood. Robinson was the first known survivor, but she was not the first victim to be found. On September 23, 1993, a building inspector conducting a routine inspection of an abandoned factory on Chicago's South Side witnessed a horrifying scene. A woman's body was lying on the factory's loading dock. Her clothing was scattered about the scene, with only a pair of shoes missing. She was naked from the waist down. Her hands were covered with abrasions and defensive wounds, and what chilled the investigators most was that her severely beaten face had been deliberately covered with a piece of fabric. Later, a fingerprint comparison confirmed the victim's identity. She was Patricia Dunn, a 37-year-old resident of the Englewood community. Investigators initially assumed it would be a quick case to solve, as being naked from the waist down was virtually irrefutable evidence of sexual assault. However, the forensic examination of the body, which was sent to the medical examiner's office, found no evidence of sexual assault. Without any eyewitnesses, evidence of sexual assault, or fingerprints, the case eventually went cold and remained unsolved for 2.5 years. It lasted only 2.5 years, not because the case of Patricia was solved, but because a new female body was found. In spring 1995, several children playing in a vacant house just a few blocks from the scene of Patricia's crime found the body of a woman inside. The similarities to Patricia's case were striking. She was naked from the waist down. Her face had been severely beaten and then deliberately covered. A rope was wrapped around her neck. Her clothing was scattered messily throughout the room, and her shoes were missing. These similarities are shocking, investigators said. However, the conclusions reached after her body was sent to the medical examiner's office were entirely different from those in Patricia's case. The fingerprint comparison confirmed the victim's identity as Angela, a 36-year-old woman, and it was confirmed that she had indeed been sexually assaulted. Despite successfully extracting DNA, however, database comparison yielded no results. 2 years later, time came to Thanksgiving of 1997. That evening, Robinson was walking in her neighborhood when a black man called out to her, "Do you want to try some drugs?" However, as soon as she approached him, he pulled out a knife and forced her into an abandoned building. He sexually assaulted her there and then repeatedly beat her with a wooden plank. Afterwards, Robinson recalled that if she had not played dead, she certainly would have died. The black man mistakenly believed that she was dead, covered her body with a mattress, stole her shoes, and left the scene. Robinson then managed to find help and, despite her severe injuries, she survived. Later, she described the attacker to the police as a black male, approximately 6 feet tall. Several days later, the test results came back. They confirmed that the semen extracted from Robinson's body matched that left inside Angela. Just as investigators had suspected, the man who attacked Robinson was the same person who killed Patricia and Angela. Later, Robinson helped investigators create a composite sketch of the man. Although the Southside appeared to be a place of gang control, disorder, poverty, and ethnic minorities, there, whether ordinary residents, gang members, or other people such as vagrants and prostitutes, they all actively cooperated with investigators, widely disseminated information, and attempted to piece together clues to find the man who had attacked these women. On August 13, 1998, police found the corpses of 2 women in 2 abandoned buildings located just 1 mile apart. 32-year-old Thompson and 44-year-old Harris had been beaten, their faces covered, and their shoes missing. And the semen found on both victims by investigators matched the genetic evidence from the Robinson and Angela cases perfectly. Over the following 5 months, 2 more victims were found: 38-year-old Cheryl and 44-year-old Johnson. Like the other victims, they were found in abandoned buildings without their shoes, and the semen left by the killer matched that found in previous cases. Later, the trust that investigators had established with locals finally paid off. 2 women came forward to report a man known as Dre. He was notorious for assaulting women in abandoned buildings. Another person told police that a man named Andre frequently used drugs with prostitutes in abandoned buildings, and even more crucially, several of the victims were prostitutes who had used drugs with him. Then, investigators identified the suspect as Andre Crawford, a well-known figure in the Englewood area who had previously been arrested and imprisoned for drugs and sexual assault. They also reviewed his incarceration records, and a clear pattern emerged. During his imprisonment, the murder stopped. When his release, the murder began again. One neighbor said, "He was the kind of person who would offer to do small chores for cash. You would never expect it. He would ask if he could shovel snow for you." Another neighbor stated that Andre frequently expressed his hatred toward prostitutes, saying, "They shouldn't be there. They should get a job and do something better." On January 28, 2000, Andre was arrested. Initially, he refused to provide a DNA sample, but when police presented a court order, he was compelled to cooperate. Then, the testing confirmed that Andre was the man who had committed the 6 murders. During his interrogation, he told investigators that he would exchange drugs for sex. He said that if a woman showed any sign of betrayal during this transaction, he would fly into a rage and kill her. Over the course of 3 full days, Andre confessed to each of the 6 murders individually, and also voluntarily disclosed details of 5 further murders and several attempted assaults. Due to various reasons, Andre's trial was postponed until mid-November 2009. By that time, the prosecution had charged him with 11 counts of murder and aggravated criminal sexual assault, including 1 count of attempted murder. Then, after 10 hours of deliberation, the jury found Andre guilty on all counts. However, the death penalty was not imposed. He was only sentenced to life imprisonment. When the judge read the verdict, Andre's face expressionless and completely unresponsive, even as low gasps and sobs came from the gallery. Patricia's sister asked, "It only takes 2 killings to be eligible for death. It was 11. What kind of justice is that?" The brother of Cheryl, he said, that when the verdict was announced, he saw the smile on Andre's face, and it was a very sinister smile. Robinson, the only surviving victim, tearfully condemned the jury's decision, stating, "What the justice did today tells every criminal they can kill and live." In response to these words, Andre's lawyers argued Andre had suffered sexual abuse and mistreatment during his childhood, and that his life should be spared. Later, when John Fabian, a forensic neuropsychologist, evaluated Andre's psychological condition, He found that his mother was negligent and abusive. She prostituted herself and her son when he was 14 years old. John speculated he wanted to make these women suffer because that's what he wanted to do to his mother. Covering victims' faces could indicate shame or regret. While it is true that most serial killers have badly childhoods, this is by no means a reason to sympathize with or forgive them. Rather, it is a means of understanding how their psychology became twisted and how they became beast. This world is full of illusions. Only pain tells the truth. In 1962, Andre was born on the Southside of Chicago. His father abandoned the family shortly after his birth, and his mother was nearly indifferent to him and his sister's existence. So, Andre and his sister could only be placed in a foster family. According to Andre, his foster parents frequently beat him, and other members of the family sexually assaulted him. During his teens, he ran away from home to look for his biological mother's relatives, but was sexually assaulted again and forced into prostitution. But none of those claims were ever proven true. His sister, foster parents, and other relatives all denied his allegations. His foster father also stated that Andre had turned to drugs as a teenager, which caused him to fall behind in school. Was his depravity caused by abuse, or did he fabricate the abuse by his foster parents? Without concrete evidence, however, it is impossible to know for certain. In the early 1980s, Andre chose to enlist in the military. His persistent drug use during his service meant that he was unable to fulfill his duties. He repeatedly received disciplinary punishments and was ultimately discharged. After returning to Chicago, Andre wandered through squalid environments, spending his days in the company of alcohol and drugs. In the years that followed, he drifted from one low-skilled job to another, living without a fixed residence and embarking on a life as a vagrant. Andre's criminal record shows that his criminal career began on March 6, 1993, when he was first sent to prison for theft. On September 21, 1993, Patricia was found murdered. On December 21, 1994, a 24-year-old woman was found murdered. On April 3, 1995, Angela was found murdered. 1 month after Angela was found, Andre was arrested for assault and rape. In fact, all of his subsequent crimes could have been prevented. If police had collected his DNA sample when he committed the theft or the rape, he would have been arrested long ago. However, oversights in the judicial system meant that opportunities to arrest him were missed time and again, turning one woman after another into victims. On March 18, 2017, 8 years ago, Andre ultimately died of liver cancer.